enough time has passed now after the last general elections to start analysing some of the results. But in an opinion piece last week on News 24, political analyst Dr. Ebrahim Harvey, he looked at the resurgence of coloured nationalism here in the Western Cape. It's not a phenomenon that is restricted just to the so-called coloured community. In this election, we've seen a resurgence of Zulu nationalism. We have also, in the last while, seen people who affiliate themselves to the identity of being white and Afrikaans also being attracted to a white and Afrikaans party like the Freedom Front Plus. But what is it about the so-called coloured vote and its impact on the last elections? A party that identifies as speaking for a coloured constituency, the Patriotic Alliance, winning, I think, 9 seats in the National Assembly. The Cape Coloured Congress getting a seat. Two seats, apologies, Fadiel, here in the National Assembly. Dr. Ebrahim Harvey, and also, as you heard, Fadiel Adams of the National Coloured Congress. But I'll start with you, Ebrahim. Thanks so much for your time. Surely it's not a new phenomenon. There's always been this concept of the so-called coloured vote. In the 2021 local government elections, we started seeing this growth in this identity-based vote. But do you think that manifests itself truly in the 2024 general elections? Good morning.
Yes, it does. But, you're going to need to invite me to a separate interview for me to take you to the historical roots. You see, Fadiel Adams himself in the speech to Parliament raises this thing, about the national question. Now, the coloured question is a subset of the wider and broader national question. The origins of the national question actually lie with the Khoisan people. That is where it starts. It doesn't start with so-called African and black people. That is where you must read my 2021 book, The Great Pretenders, Race and Class Under ANC Rule. I go into detail, Lester, on this matter. I devote a chapter to it. And it won the South African Literary Awards for Nonfiction 2022. But very importantly, you must go back to 1994. Ask yourself, Lester, how is it possible and conceivable that in a place where the UDF was born in August 1983, the ANC was trounced by the Nationalist Party because they prematurely disbanded the UDF in 1991 because they were under pressure from the returning exiled ANC leadership, not the UDF. The UDF, there was resistance to the disbanding of the UDF. It came from the exiled ANC. I don't want to go into it. They thought the UDF would act as a problem during the sensitive stages of the negotiation. So they lost the elections, and since then you can see what has happened. The ANC on its own, has never won Cape Town. You must remember, however, historically, the ANC Cape Town has never been a strong area of the ANC, the PAC, Unity Movement, etc. But there's a particular peculiarity about the coloured question. You cannot equate it with Zulu nationalism. That's why I say you got to go to the 2021 book where I deal in detail with it. But
we can argue, Ebrahim, that the question of a coloured nationalism starts in 1994, but an ANC dispensation doesn't help in this relation when we talk about a Labour court ruling that questioned the decision of the Department of Correctional Services to overlook coloured workers, coloured correctional services workers here in the Western Cape. The ANC hasn't helped its own cause when dealing with the national question.
Yes, obviously not. That is the roots. That's why I speak at length. I've devoted columns to this thing about the rise of an Africanist majoritarian chauvinism. When the ANC lost the elections in 1999 again, Agri Cluster and Don Matera, then the Sowetan asked me to pen a piece. I did a piece on why the ANC lost, and I coined this term, an Africanist majoritarian chauvinism, since then, and it's been often in my writings. They've been their worst enemy. Lester, you've got to ask yourself, how is it possible that the Cape Flats have been the killing fields. No area in this country ever, if not in Africa, has seen people being slaughtered the way they've been on, and the so-called colored people on the Cape Flats. It has never happened anywhere. It has also never happened in the entire history of the colonial world that an oppressed and exploited peoples, Lester, for over 3 centuries, voted for the oppressors and exploiters in their first Uhuru elections, 1994. So Cape Town and the colored question there is a very peculiar and interesting and dynamic and complex question. Don't equate it, with other forms of Zulu and Afrikaner nationalism. There's a particular thing about what has happened in the Cape that we need to address.
Well, let me ask Fadiel Adams of the Cape Coloured Congress. Do you consider yourself a coloured nationalist?
Whew. Good morning, Dr. Ebrahim. Good morning to all the listeners. To an extent, yes. Nationalist, because I'm heartful. I'm tired of seeing good children die for no reason except politics. I'm tired of seeing elderly people live in walkies for no reason except politics. I am tired of seeing daddies unemployed, men having their pride taken from them because they can't find work because of their skin color, because of politics. So yeah, in that extent, to that extreme, I would consider myself a coloured nationalist.
It doesn't start in the Western Cape in a 2021 local government elections. You've seen a growth of the abandonment of the broad church politics of the ANC in earlier elections, the growth of parties like Ikoza in the Karoo and in the Southern Cape for some time now. So you're not necessarily novel in your approach and trying to attract a coloured constituency, a so-called coloured constituency.
Never ever claimed to be novel or new or unique, but we were bold enough to be the first people to ask the question loudly. Everybody else was subtle about it. Everyone else was talking about inclusivity. We decided to talk about the exclusivity of the coloured people. We were the first to do that. In that respect, the OG sits here. Everybody else wants the title, but they need to come say it to our faces. You must understand this, that I've been writing letters to the Argus and the Cape Times since about 2014, denouncing what's happening to our communities. And one day I woke up and decided, look, writing is not going to do it. We need some action. We need some plan. And I would say that the plan is coming along quite nicely.
Ebrahim, your thoughts on not just being a Cape Town phenomenon, the growth of the so-called coloured vote in parts of Nelson Mandela Bay, in Gauteng. Also, I've mentioned the growth of so-called coloured rural votes in parts like Beaufort West. Also stemming, would you say, from your diagnosis of a failure of 1994?
Yes, thank you. You're raising a very, very valid, pivotal question now, Lester. Let me tell you, I'm in Joburg right now. I'm from Johannesburg. Go around to the working class townships of Johannesburg, Eldorado Park, Western, Westbury, Newcliffe. How is it possible that, you must remember, the coloured working class has been the overwhelming majority of the coloured population from around 1850. That's the origins of the classification of the word coloured. Eldorado Park, Kliptown, all are coloured areas. And where are they today, Lester? And for how long? They are with the DA. What are they doing with the DA? A neoliberal party. You look at its policies, it's committed to capitalism, etc., and it commands the vote of the majority of the coloured working class, and not only in Cape Town and the Western Cape, but around the country. Lester, the Labour coloured preference policy that I spoke about, I think what has happened in the Western Cape is that the ANC politicians, in a retaliatory kind of way, as in fact, even in contradiction to the demographic facts, where the majority of the coloured people in Cape Town have been the coloured people, though it's declined with the influx of people from other parts. It's roughly now about 52, 53%, is what it was 65 to 70% at one stage. And so, you have to ask yourself, how is it possible that the ANC controls the army and the police force, and they've been unable to put an end to incredible and unprecedented bloodletting on the Cape Flats? I've devoted columns to this thing. So there are deep roots, and, it's despite the limitations of the DA that the colored working class people have thrown in their lot in most of the country, let me tell you, with the DA. They shouldn't be there. That's why the UDF was born in August 1983 in Cape Town. Very important. And you must remember, Lester, the UDF was the first ever organization in the entire history of the Cape that commanded the
Ebrahim, Harvey, I think we've lost you. Try and get you back on a better line. But Fadiel, and it's our Wednesday panel, and we're unpacking some of the election results, and we're looking at this growth of parties that identify themselves with a so-called coloured vote, a coloured constituency. Fadiel Adams of the Cape Coloured Congress. You say you're proudly pro-coloured, but does that necessarily mean you're anti-black? You're part of a caucus in Parliament called the Progressive Caucus, made up of parties which are consider themselves Pan-African, pro-black African, and you're part of this caucus now. But a lot of the people that I speak to, people who I listen to, people who I see on social media, who may follow you and your party, but often express an anti-black, and particularly an anti-black sentiment in terms of who gets what opportunities in the city of Cape Town.
We've never ever denied the racism that lives in the coloured community towards black people in general. It's there. We need to deal with that. But let us look at the roots of it. The doctor just expressed it. What are coloured people doing in the DA? The ANC pushed them there. The ANC, with their skewed BEE policies and the negative impact it had on the coloured community, have pushed us towards the DA. Now, I deal with the racism. People come up to me and talk to me about the Kiewit, and I'm like, whoa, brah, don't do that. And they're shocked to find out that I don't use that word. Understand something, I'm in the Progressive Caucus because I'm fighting a neoliberal government here. I'm fighting a capitalist government which will see all of us starve to the benefit of a few. That's what I'm doing in the Progressive Caucus. Do I share every sentiment with the EFF? No. Do I share every sentiment with the MK party? No. I'm here to fight for the coloured community like I said I would. Inside of the GNU, nothing will happen for the coloured people. That's why we didn't enter it.
Isn't then your words and the tone that you express incredibly important? I'll use the example of the Pinelands High School case at the moment, where you have so-called coloured children born after the year 2000 who can carry out an atrocious act of putting and mimicking slavery by putting a black African child in a cage, almost exiting themselves as being part of a group that was also enslaved, that was also brutalized under apartheid, but don't necessarily see themselves also as being black, but also who are receptive to the words and the tone and the sentiment expressed out there by people who call themselves proudly coloured.
So let's start off quickly. The fact that it happened at a school is disturbing because that's where education is supposed to happen. That's where all these chains are supposed to be left behind. The shackles must come off. But let me just correct you there. The people who suffered slavery in this country, the only people, were in fact the Khoi and the coloured. Let's just put that out there. That's where, let's just start there. And then also, I condemn what happened at that school. But let's educate these boys. Anger's not going to help us in this instance. Some people are claiming it was a joke. I don't think it's funny. I really don't. However, let me put it in context. A group of school children are out in their own silliness. I don't know if the black and coloured people or kids were all willing participants in this. I don't know the full facts. But if they're thinking it's a joke, as adults, it's our job to educate them. Now you look at blackface, Ian Cameron. Now you look at Ronaldo Gous. They're both MPs. They're both sitting next to me. But that issue is being swept under the carpet. But a bunch of silly kids go catch on something that at best they should be grounded for. Grounded and made to attend some type of sensitivity class. And it's an issue of national outrage.
You're an MP who was found by the Equality Court to have discriminated and defamed the city manager as a black African.
No. Do not twist my words.
And you're an MP now.
I said he's from the Eastern Cape. I made no issue, no mention of his race. I said he's from the Eastern Cape. I said the man is making our flats collapse here. He's moved our budget around. This man from the Eastern Cape can't possibly care about us. That's what I said. The court found me guilty. I accept the court ruling. I won't say it again. I never put him in a cage. I never painted my face black. But that was an issue. Apparently, only colored people can be racist. You explain that to me. Make it make sense.
Ebrahim, Harvey, we're running out of time, but I'll have you have the last word. And yes, you are correct. We need a longer, in-depth, and probably more than 20 minutes to have a conversation on primetime breakfast radio. But if you look at the trends and how we're seeing a stratified constituency of people identifying more with cultural, race, or language markers, what do you expect in a next local government election? What do you expect in the next 2029 provincial and general election in South Africa?
Yeah, no, you have to link the resurgence of racism. I've done a lot of pieces. There is a virulent black African racism in this country, Leicester, post-1994, all over the country. It's deep, and it's got a lot to do with the disaffection of the colored voters with the ANC and moving to the UD. You must also remember, the only people to have suffered classical slavery in this country, bought and sold, go to the slave lodge and go do some research, call them colored people. The only people to have suffered classical slavery. Now, back to your question now, there is no doubt you're going to have this resurgence of identity politics in inverse proportion to the deepening and worsening of the socio-economic crisis. Leicester, the colored working class in Cape Town is worse off today, can you believe me saying that, than they were in the darkest days of apartheid? Go around in Cape Town, come to Joburg, go to the town, and it's not just colored people, no. In fact, the so-called African people are worse off than the colored people of Leicester. So you've got to look at the neoliberal policies of the ANC, what it has done. And it has obscured that necessary interclass solidarity between coloreds, Indians, and Africans because of these kind of problems that we're dealing with now. When affirmative action has given an African slant that disadvantages the colored working class majority in Cape Town and around the country.
Ebrahim Harvey, really appreciate it. Dr. Ebrahim Harvey's opinion piece on News 24. Fadiel Adams, thank you as always. Really appreciate your time.